Oh, God, not again.
Hey, what do you want from me?
Nothing. Holding alone. Thought you might appreciate company.
Can I come out then?
No. Deep breath.
I was really thrilled to see what's been done with Watchmen to translate that into the animation medium.
Adapting Watchmen for a movie is very intimidating.
Oh my God, there's so much here. How are we going to condense this down? How are we going to produce this?
What can animation do differently that the other mediums can't, while still respecting the source material?
No.
I have decided to create something. A world grows up around me. Am I shaping it, or do its predetermined contours guide my hand?
I've always loved animation. It's got a great power to it. The things you don't have in comics, the movement, the sound, really come to the fore in animation.
Dave Gibbons was essentially our North Star when it came to art direction.
There was no way we were going to start these movies without getting Dave involved. We really wanted to crawl into his head. We wanted to get any information out of him that we could that would help us make the best adaptation possible.
I have business with a better class of person.
He has a very naturalistic filmmaking eye.
Every choice we made was always to stay faithful to the book, and people watching this would feel like the book came to life.
The very first shot of the book is a crane shot with the camera pulling out from the button in the gutter.
The streets are extended gutters, and the gutters are full of blood. And when the drains finally scab over, all the vermin will drown.
I was very excited about trying to duplicate that in film.
It took me 2 years to draw the original graphic novel of Watchmen. It's a daunting thing to attempt. I'm so pleased that it's over 2 films rather than being crammed into one shorter film.
Crushing a lot of material into a small space damages it. This was an opportunity to tell all of it.
You must be bored as hell. You know better than that.
We were going to have to make some hard choices and try to distill all of that great work down to its most essential elements.
I think all the important beats are in there, but because of how it lays out, there was no way to do it in the same order as the comic.
It's a lot to take 12 issues and tell that over 2 features.
Inevitably, when you adapt from one medium to another, you're going to have to change things. You're going to have to emphasize things in the narrative in a different way.
You haven't been down here in a while.
Neither of you. Lots of dust.
I did such a lot of work in doing the original graphic novel that I probably supplied them with everything they needed.
I want to thank Gibbons for making them, because they made my job a lot easier, trying to find all the detail in a thing, and he gave it as large as he could.
The first element that excited me about adapting the Watchmen book was that it is set in the 80s. How can we make this movie feel like it's a product of the 80s?
Where are you going, pigs?
The party's right here!
One of the things we really wanted to do in capturing Dave's art was not just the great line art that he did, but actually capture the pen stroke itself.
I was able to pull out the exact micron dot of Gibbons' brush on paper. I built all of my brushes so that they exactly matched the comic book. How do you put that on a 3D model that moves? So we invented this card system where you had a model that was intersected by a plane, and that plane would draw the Gibbons line. It allowed the line to move with the 3D.
We were able to not only capture the look of Dave's drawings by wrapping his line textures around CG characters, but also light the characters in such a way that was evocative of comic book color printing or animation styles of the 1980s. We also tried to take paper textures and apply that to all of the backgrounds and even to the skin textures so that you feel traditional media textures coming through. Can't do all of that paper texture on screen, but what I can do is apply film grain, which is visible in 80s filmmaking to evoke the feeling, of the pulpy paper that Watchmen was originally printed on.
We were lucky enough to have such a multi-talented team in LA, this very scrappy, small team that really thought out of the box and figured out how to establish the final look in the film.
If you're looking at anything on screen and you're thinking, this looks 2D, we did our job right, because that's what we wanted. We made a 3D movie. It's all CG, but we wanted it to feel like hand-drawn animation from the 80s. There was no CGI animation in the time period when Watchmen was published.
I watched the whole thing very much with my mouth open because of it looking like it had been drawn by me. The whole thing felt absolutely state-of-the-art. It's just like seeing my mental process come to life on the screen.
What happened to the American dream?
It came true. You're looking at it. Now let's really put these jokers through some changes.
It was tricky adapting a lot of the famous scenes from the book.
There's so much in there, which is amazing and really hard to translate.
So many of the scenes fitting the 9-panel grid are vertical compositions, and of course we're working with horizontal compositions.
Funny story. Sounds unbelievable. Probably true.
One of the challenges was filling out the space.
You have to think of new compositions that complement the original intent of the artist and choosing what you feel like serves that scene in the most impactful way you can.
We wanted to allow ourselves as filmmakers room to play with the compositions, be evocative of the book, capture the spirit of the book, but also find ways to create compositions that work best for our filmmaking.
Man, I'm trying to read here.
You get to decide the pace that you enjoy a comic. What is nice for us, being able to do it in a film form, is that we get to pace it for you. We also get to serve those emotional moments with music, sound, and editing.
I think you remember me and my country. You remember as long as you live.
We have a lot more fast-paced editing when it comes to an action scene. That's automatically going to introduce more shots, more panels that never could have been in a comic book medium. Our filmmaking was all designed to match choices that Dave might make if he had a camera instead of a pen.
Every pass comes back and it's a little closer and it's a little closer. When you finally see Rorschach breaking into Dr. Manhattan's lab in the rain, you think, oh my gosh, it looks as good as the comic, but better. And that sounds blasphemous, but I think it's accurate.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have something really special for you tonight.
I'll get my coat. Let's go.
I really enjoyed working on the scene where we're cross-cutting between the interview with Dr. Manhattan on the Benny Anger show and the alley fight with Dan and Laurie. From a filmmaking standpoint, from an editorial standpoint, I knew that those things had to come to a head at the same time.
Doug has reports of over 24 of your former associates who have been similarly afflicted.
No.
Do you have any response to these allegations?
That's an example of where we're trying to respect the order of events as presented in the book, but then knit them together in a slightly different way editorially that is more satisfying for a movie.
Leave me alone.
Do you think you gave Miss Slater cancer by sleeping with her?
I said...
How does it feel knowing you may have doomed hundreds of people?
Leave me alone!
It feels almost like something that I gave birth to, but it's the first time I've seen it. So that's rather a strange feeling.
When we finally shared some of our work with him and he had such a positive reaction, we all kind of took a sigh.
If Dave feels like our movies came from his hand or from his mind, then mission accomplished.
Which of us is responsible? Who makes the world? Perhaps it simply is, has been, and will always be there. A clock without a craftsman.